As the seasons were going by, I was like, wait, why are we still rooting for this guy? Because he is stealing, lying, killing, but there's something about him that makes us root for him, at least for the first half of the show, over everyone else. I finally managed to watch the show about the most menacing dudes in all of Birmingham, Peaky Blinders, and I know that I'm pretty late to the game with this, but the release of the movie was impending, so I finally got around to it. I started in January, and I managed to finish season 6 around the time that the movie The Immortal Man came out. I'm here to talk about my favorite parts throughout the 6 seasons of Peaky Blinders, whether it be characters, arcs, needle drops, scenes, dialogue, etc. And then I'm going to get into The Immortal Man and how it complements the legacy of the show. Spoilers, of course, for all of Peaky Blinders, as well as for Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man. So let's get into season 1 of Peaky Blinders. We open just a little bit after World War I in Birmingham, England, and of course we are seeing this through the POV of Thomas Shelby, played by the great Oscar-winning actor Cillian Murphy. Just from those first few minutes, you're reminded like how well this guy is able to commit and even disappear into a character. He really embodies this character who is soft-spoken and often controlled. Stephen Knight's style in the show is really intriguing. I mean, we go into the 1910s at the beginning, but we're using music from the 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. I always love when movies and shows do that, and Peaky Blinders is just constantly using a more modern or like 80s, 90s style of rock music to sort of remind you that this is something heightened and maybe even raise the excitement for audiences. So we meet a couple of characters right off the bat. Thomas Shelby is, well, he's not necessarily a good person. He is stealing, lying, killing, but there's something about him that makes us root for him, at least for the first half of the show, over everyone else. As the seasons were going by, I was like, wait, why are we still rooting for this guy? There's a few reasons why we sympathize with him, even when he starts doing really awful things, which is, number one, he controls his temper and sometimes doesn't murder people. Like he knows how to show mercy occasionally when maybe other gangsters wouldn't. Number two, he does not kill kids. That is something that he detests and is just off limits for him. And number three, he's not a white supremacist. So, you know, he still does all the other stuff. He lies, steals, kills, cheats, but somehow we are still rooting for him. There's also his right-hand man and brother, Arthur Shelby, who, he's a scene stealer. Let's just say that. Arthur is a lot of fun. He is sort of the antithesis to Tommy because Arthur is just, he cannot control his temper. He says whatever is on his mind, which is usually some sort of awful, offensive thought. He kills people mercilessly left and right. He is a bully in every sense of the word, but there's eventually something becomes really endearing about him, that he keeps screwing up and making awful decisions that make enemies for him, but he's sort of unkillable throughout the whole show. Like, he just survives so many tribulations that it becomes kind of fun to follow, and there is a sense of pity that you feel for Arthur because he just can't change. There's also their brother John, played by Joe Cole, who I really liked in Black Mirror and some other things, and he very early on marries Esme, who's played by Amy Fiona Edwards, who I also really like in Slow Horses, in order to avoid a war between their two families, which I think makes for a really interesting relationship and plays into the entire Shelby family dynamic later on. Then there's their sister Ada, who's played by Sophie Rundle. She's one of the characters who is just captivating in every single scene throughout all the 6 seasons. Like, when she's not there, you want more of her. And it's because she sort of has this immovable identity that no matter what deep shit the Shelbys get into, she is so convinced of what she should do and needs to do for herself. She succeeds in that even when awful things are happening to her or the people around her. And Polly Gray. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. My favorite character in the whole show. What a power Helen McCrory brought to the screen. She reinvents the dynamic of every room that she enters. I think the more I was watching her perform, the more devastating it felt to remember that she's since passed. Every single choice that she made and everything she did in this show was really something to behold. And she's kind of the only one who is as powerful and as the balls to stand up to Tommy, because Tommy and the other Peaky Blinders are ruling through fear and power, but she's not really afraid, and that's what makes Polly so unpredictable and impossible to look away from. Sam Neill is also great here as Inspector Chester Campbell, and he just becomes more menacing as the show goes on. And in the second season, when he brings in like that really loud cane, you're like terrified of him in a way. And one of the most interesting things in the first season was this sort of push and pull between him and Tommy, because, you know, one of them's on the right side of the law, but maybe doing as evil things, just even more ruthless, and just doesn't care about treating people nicely. And then also Annabelle Wallis is really good. She's caught in the middle of their clash as Grace. I want to get into the second season a little bit more about Polly, because a very important character, Michael, comes into the show, played by Finn Cole, and he is brought in as very innocent and soft, and soon hardened by the influence of the Peaky Blinders in the later seasons. But in those early scenes of season 2, when Tommy sort of presents this knowledge to her that he's found that her son is alive and her daughter has passed away and they were taken by her early in their lives, really devastates and brings back a lot of old demons for Polly. And there is so much vulnerability and pain that Helen McCrory brings there. This is something very important because the Shelby's entire arc, even before the show begins, is formed by their identity as minorities. The fact that they are of Romani heritage and have been, you know, persecuted throughout history is very much informative of their strive to survive and protect themselves by any means necessary, even if that means, you know, committing crimes. That's a very important fuel to their will, to their fury, and it makes us feel something for the Shelbys, even if we don't exactly support the things that they're doing. And how can we not talk about Alfie Solomons, who we meet in season 2 as well? He is such a joy, bro. Whoever wrote Tom Hardy's dialogue for this show deserves some award. Like, he just says everything that's on his mind. He is like so cool with like offending everyone. Like, he has a lot of self-deprecating humor too. That's one of the things I love about Alfie. And this, every time he's on screen, I feel like there isn't enough of him because he's only in a couple episodes per season. But Tom Hardy is just a blessing for this show and everywhere he's in. And then also Grace returns to England after having left to New York at the end of the first season. This is something I always question, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but why would she just go back to the very place that this Scotland Yard inspector who she shot is just like there and still hanging out and investigating? Like, she's there for a good 2 episodes before Campbell dies. He's a high-ranking officer, so is she not a little bit scared of just like hanging around while he's still in power? But yeah, he is very hateable. Then Polly gets rid of him. Season 3 begins with Tommy and Grace getting married. They have a kid now, and 2 episodes after that, Grace is no more. I had a feeling during that whole dance scene that, like, yeah, now it's just a matter of time. Is she gonna die at the end of this season? Because it's like, yeah, this is a gangster crime show. Like, you can't just have him have a happy wife, happy family, happy life. She's gonna go, right? And then it happened like that very scene, and I was like, oh my god, that was fast. Annabelle Wallis is very good in the show, but I think the writers kind of realized that they didn't have much more of a purpose for her. She was kind of just there to give him happiness, and they realized that he needed more of a fuel throughout the rest of the show to go to war and do the things that he needs to do. At that point, I feel like Grace sort of became a vessel and didn't really have much left to offer as a character. There's the scene where he makes the deal, and then he ends up selling out his whole family, even if it was to protect them. This feels like the moment where we lose a lot of sympathy for Tommy, because he does not mind hurting people, even the ones closest to him, as long as it is strategic. And we get that he's doing this for the greater good, but the way they sort of like celebrate, and then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, you're all going to jail and it's my fault. Like, you definitely, as an audience member, kind of turn on him in that very moment. But that actually kicks off a lot more worse things that Tommy's going to do later. In season 4, something really interesting happens because the family members are about to get hanged and then they get pardoned at the very last second. This leads Polly to go on a very interesting journey. She keeps talking about how because she was on the news, she sort of died and is now reborn and nothing matters. And this is, I think, the main through line of the show, is the closer you get to death, the more you realize anew what you need to do with life. Tommy had this happen with him in the war, as well as at the very end of season 2, where he thought he was getting executed. Polly has this happen to her at the start of season 4, and then Arthur and Alfie have this sort of near miss with death towards the end of the season. And this season brings out my favorite villain of the whole show, Luca Changretta. Adrian Brody is a scene stealer. He is terrifying and he feels so big in this. His accent and the way he walks into the room, it's like a 7-minute scene at least. And he puts the bullets down and names them by the family member. It is such a terrifying moment where he also lays out this pride of like, yes, I'm gonna kill everyone you love, you're gonna watch, and then I'm gonna kill you. That vanity also leads to his downfall because he could have killed Tommy right there, but ultimately he wanted to draw out his revenge, and that ends with Luca's demise. And what's crazy is there's so much stakes that the Changrettas bring to this season. They put the Peaky Blinders on their knees. The Shelbys are almost broken by the end of this. John is killed, Michael and Arthur are almost killed by them, and it seems like they've lost until the last moment when it's revealed that Tommy devised this plan to fake Arthur's death to bring the Changrettas to this vulnerable moment and then kill Luca, which is also a fantastic climax. And then Tommy does what all greedy and powerful people do. He gets into politics. Season 5 is when the show became a Netflix original. We start with the Great Depression and Michael returning from New York to Birmingham with his new wife Gina, played by the great Anya Taylor-Joy. Also, I gotta say, the Billy Boys are terrifying. Like, they're even scarier than Luca. When they come in, they come out of the woods, like they reveal themselves from the trees singing that song, and they murder Bonnie, and Aidan Gillen is just there crying, who's great in this show, by the way. Yeah, they freaked me out, and genuinely, I had no idea what was gonna happen with them. They kind of just disappear after making a truce in season 5. But maybe more terrifying is Oswald Mosley, my favorite performance that Sam Claflin has given. Sometimes power comes through fear, money, control, but what about power through ideology? And what if that ideology lines up with white supremacy? That's what makes that scene in episode 5 where Oswald Mosley makes his speech and reveals his true intentions to the audience really, really terrifying. And this, I feel like, was the first season in a while to end on a far less victorious note, because their assassination attempt on Mosley doesn't work. Cosmo Jarvis and Aidan Gillen's characters get killed off right there. And with that, I want to come into something really interesting, because in season 6, the final season, I think the show managed to improve its relationship with death. When one of the show's lead stars, Helen McCrory, passed away, the show understood that it had to deepen its relationship with death and loss and finality. And the face Cillian Murphy makes when he discovers that Polly has been killed by the IRA, you realize what's happened just with that expression of his. Those whole first few minutes of season 6 are devastating, and you feel the impact and the hole that's been left by her right then and there, but also she just casts a shadow on the whole rest of the show. She was, again, such a beast, such a presence, and I cannot shout out Helen McCrory enough. She was an incredible talent, a remarkable actor who, if you need proof as to why she was so incredible and beloved, look no further than her performance here in Peaky Blinders. And of course, course, the other loss that is suffered from in season 6 is Tommy and Lizzie's daughter Ruby, who dies from an illness pretty quickly, and you can feel how much this loss devastates and reshapes them. Natasha O'Keeffe's performance here is incredible. In that last season, I realized how amazing and essential she really was to the whole thing. And those scenes are incredibly painful because I think the loss of a child is the most unimaginable thing that can happen, but for a few minutes there, you really think that this is going to change Tommy's course, that now he's going to stop killing, he's going to stop his ways, but he keeps going. He keeps killing the wrong people too out of rage, and he just keeps going down this dark and wrong path. Now, I want to get into the series finale because some really great things happen, including my favorite scene in the whole show, which is the attempted IRA assassination of Arthur. They really let that scene play out. It's like a 15+ minute scene of a lot of just silence and echoing and white noise in these foggy streets in front of the pub. You really feel the tension there. I felt my heart racing, even if I was like, okay, maybe this is time for Arthur to die. But yeah, Arthur makes it out of that one alive, and honestly, like, I don't know how he did it. Like, he just did so many awful things, but still made it out on top, which was really interesting because he never really fully made amends, but he kind of just embraced who he was as a Peaky Blinder and as a leader. That's why I love that it's kind of a running joke that no matter what comes Arthur's way, he'll be out of it and just keep making jokes and coming back for revenge and shooting the other person in the head. And now to Michael's attempted assassination of Tommy. I think they did a really good job of building the tension there and why Michael was so like, I have to kill him. He'll never stop chasing me. He'll never stop hurting us and future generations. But I kind of feel like Tommy didn't need to kill Michael. Like, I get that he saw like, okay, he's going to keep trying to kill me, but that was sort of the moment that maybe he could have finally shown mercy towards someone, but towards his own cousin, he's like, no, you're dead. And then he comes back to Birmingham and he's like applauded by everyone. Like, I was so confused. Like, Ada sort of just claps for him when he blows up his own house, but she's like fully with the knowledge that he just killed their cousin not too long ago. That may also be what the show was trying to say at the end, because he discovers that this doctor was lying to him, that he had a terminal illness because he was in cahoots with Oswald Mosley, and they hoped that he would be able to just kill himself out of the presumed knowledge that he would just die anyway. And then he realizes that he's been deceived, and this is like his final near miss with death, in which he's reborn and finds peace at last. But I think the show in its final moments is asking you, is it not too late for this guy? He has already killed and destroyed so much in his life. His daughter has died. His wife has left him. Almost everyone around him is dead. Will this man truly be able to find peace? And does he really deserve it? That's, I think, the poetic note that Peaky Blinders ends on. Then I had the chance to catch Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man, and I loved it. From the opening moments, we realize that we are in World War II, so it automatically creates a sort of ticking clock. And the reason the stakes are raised is because the Nazis have this double agent played by Tim Roth, who is trying to help smuggle all this counterfeit money in order to topple the economy and then conquer the UK. This would effectively defeat one of the Allies' greatest forces and allow the Nazis to win the war. And let me just say, Tim Roth in this is absolutely menacing. He's a character so devoid of empathy and so evil in his core, and the ability in which he's able to do such evil without thinking twice, just thinking like, this is necessary. And, you know, of course he's a Nazi, so you right off the bat don't like this guy. But he's legit in the running for like my favorite villain of the entire Peaky Blinders franchise. Tommy is in retirement. His son Duke has now taken much charge in the Peaky Blinders in Birmingham. Barry Keoghan is also just always great in everything that he does. This is no exception. Rebecca Ferguson plays a really unique part, not just in the film, but in the franchise, because she's Zelda, the deceased former flame of Tommy's, who is Duke's mom, and she's her twin sister who comes into Tommy's life and is a palm reader. And Ada. Let's talk about Ada. I think, like I said, this show greatly improved its relationship with death and loss in the later part of the show, and Ada's death is one of the most tragic in the entire saga. I really did not think it was going to happen. Like, it was very unexpected. She's since become a member of parliament and has actually done a lot of good for the community and for the women of Birmingham. And when Tim Roth's character brutally murders her, it's genuinely devastating because, again, she just possesses so much power throughout all of Peaky Blinders. And that really makes us connect with why Tommy needs to return. So when he comes back and puts on the suit and rides through the streets in a scene that pays tribute to the first scene of the show, it feels earned and deserved. And the slow version of Red Right Hand in The Immortal Man is actually, I think, the greatest use of the song throughout all of its uses in Peaky Blinders. And then we have this really exciting, almost Guy Ritchie-like climactic battle that ends with Tim Roth's plan being foiled, and, you know, thankfully the Nazis lose, but Tommy gets mortally wounded and asks his son Duke to mercy kill him. And I think this definitely enriches Tommy's legacy and rewrites the story a bit than if we had ended it in Peaky Blinders, because now he's made this sacrifice to stop his son from going on an even darker path than he ever would have. Also, one last shout out, Stephen Graham. Love the guy. He's so great here. So yeah, Peaky Blinders, that was quite the adventure. Great show, and a movie that's just as great. And in my opinion, it's a show that's much better in its second half, in 4 through 6, than it was in 1 through 3. That's just a credit to the writers figuring out more and more what the show needed, which characters needed to be front and center, and how to develop powerful stakes and scenes. And again, it's sort of greater emphasis on loss in the very end. I was thinking to myself, like, if I had no idea about Peaky Blinders and I just watched The Immortal Man, does this still work as its own movie? Absolutely. It's still like this great story about this big, you know, gangster figure coming out of retirement to stop his son from getting in cahoots with the Nazis. And there's this, like I said, amazing pace because you only have 2 hours to tell this one story instead of 6 hours like an individual season. Let me know what you thought of Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man, and what's your favorite scene, character, and villain from Peaky Blinders. Thank you guys for watching till the end, and as always, stay tuned for much more here on the channel.